What's going on, Infected, and welcome to the Quarantine. This video I'm going to be covering a game, well, a series of games that's coming to Kickstarter by the name of Partition. Before I continue, I do have to state, as usual, everything you see here is a prototype copy of the game, so your copy, of course, will be subject to change. So what is Partition? Well, what Partition is it's a game that's meant to emulate an esports tournament, essentially. So the game, the complete game as of now, barring future expansions, comes with, you'll have the main module here for the tournament, and then you have three other styles of game. You have the Deckhand, which is supposed to emulate like a CCG, and then you have the Intrusion Point Zero, which is meant to emulate something like Counter-Strike or a first-person shooter. Then you have EOH, which is meant to emulate a MOBA. And as you see, these boxes are very small. They can each be played individually, except for the tournament portion right here. They can be played individually, or you can play them all together, kind of like a campaign style, where each player plays through. You're recruiting these players, the players take control of avatars in games, and you play through the three different games, and at the end, whoever wins the EOH tournament actually wins the entire tournament. So that's quite a bit of information there, so let's just go straight over and check out how each one plays. Before I get started, I want to mention that, as you see, there's 4 different modules to this game, which effectively are 4 different games. Now, it's going to be impossible for me to cover all, not even most, of the rules for each one of these modules, else this video would wind up being about 30 to 45 minutes long. So what I will do instead, throughout this overview, is I'll briefly cover each one of the modules so you kind of get an idea of how each one plays. Alright, we're going to start with Deckhand because it is the first game in the tournament lineup if you choose to play in that style. So what you're going to do is each one of the players are going to choose your player. And the players have different stats here which are used in different games. Sometimes they have special abilities, and then it has what one of the 3 games that they are the best at. So in this case, this symbol matches the Deckhand game, so he's best with Deckhand. And then you have a price here, which is going to be used for the tournament. And what you're going to do is you and your opponent are both going to choose, whether you draft or however you choose to do it, you're going to choose one of the 2 avatars. So we're going to use Navarre and Lootbox, for example. And if you're going to be doing it this way, it is recommended you choose 2 characters of same monetary value for a fair match. However, that may change in the tournament setup, which we'll get to later. So what you're going to do, once you've done that, each player is going to roll these dice, and they're going to roll a number of dice equal to their X factor. So their X factor is one of the stats. You have W, ASD, and X. So in this case, Navarre is going to roll 4 dice, and Lootbox is going to roll 5. Now, I do need to note throughout the rest of this preview that these dice in the final product are going to be custom dice with custom logos on the success side. So once you've figured out how many dice you're going to roll them, and for the purpose of this, 4, 5s, and 6s are considered successes. So Navarre got 3 successes, and Lootbox only has 1. So in this case, Navarre is going to get to decide who's going to go first. So on your turn, it's actually pretty simple. At the beginning of the game, you're going to draw up to 5 cards. At the beginning of your turn, if you're going first, you're only going to draw 1 card. If you're going second, you'll draw 2. Then, at that point, you have 2 of the in-game currency. Now, I'm probably going to butcher this, but it's called Court or Criet or something along those lines. It's the in-game currency. So these tokens here are used for all manner of things. So on your turn, you're going to do a different series of actions depending on what your strategy is. And those actions are move, summoning, and attacking. Now you can do these in any order, but you must complete one type of action before you move to the next. Now, movement for each one of these games is always orthogonal, which is up, down, left, right, no diagonals, for pretty much everything in this game. So what you would do in this case is I can move my captain. I can move her here, or I can move her here. I could then attack with her if there's something in range, and in this case, my card shows range 2, base damage 2, and health. So let's just say, hypothetically, the enemy commander is there for whatever reason, and I move here, actually. I'll move my commander up 1, and she's got a range of 2. So 1, 2, and to see if you have line of sight, you're going to check the middle of the card to the middle of the card. Now the reason you would do that is if, let's say I had something that had range 3, and there was an enemy here, I could go 1, 2, 3, still hit him through range, but I can't draw a straight line through here without crossing this middle card. So that's how you draw line of sight. Now in this game, or in this situation here, where I'm going to be attacking the Overseer, you're then going to be rolling dice equal to your gamer's wisdom stat. So as you see here, Navarre has a wisdom of 4, so she's going to be throwing 4 dice. You're going to roll that and add up the number of successes, and then you're going to add it to your base damage. So in this case, I have 3 plus 2, so it's 5 damage right out of the gates. So I would toss 5 damage onto the opponent's Overseer. So that's how moving and attacking works, and then you could summon cards, as you see here. So in the top right corner of these cards, you have the cost. So I could say, spend this and one of the courts to go ahead and put a what's-his-name down, and then I could maybe play this for another 1, and I could summon her here. Now you can only summon on your ship unless card rules say otherwise. But that's it. That's how this game is played, and you're going to go back and forth until one player's commander is killed. Next up is Incursion Point 0. So this one's supposed to emulate games such as like Counter-Strike. Now, the players are going to decide who's what side. Basically, you have terrorists and counter-terrorists for all intent and purpose. And then you're going to build the map by the rules in the rulebook. And then whoever's playing the terrorist player, their objective is to protect the bomb. So just like the other one, you're going to have a series of players, and you're going to be building a team. Now, in this case, because you have 4 players, or 4 characters here, you're actually going to need 4 different players. So you're going to do the same thing you did in Deckhand, but with this, and you're going to assign a player to each one of your heroes, like you see here. Now, it's very important to note that the character that you're assigning them to, the avatar, so in this case the engineer, uses W. So this isn't actually a very good matchup. It would actually be probably better like that, because he uses W. Her W stat is 4, so she'd be good for this. This is S. Her S stat is 4. She's D. Her D stat's 3. So on and so forth. So that's how you're going to want to build your team. But then the terrorist player is going to take this locations deck, and they're going to assign 1 card under every one of these. However, there's a couple of rules. Those cards, the only card that must be in this is the nuclear missile. Now, this is the objective for this player, the good guy player, to win. Once they secure this, they win. So now it's a game of kind of cat and mouse. Do you put it as far from the enemy as you possibly can, or do you put it closer to them thinking they're going to rush all the way across? But that's part of the strategy. So you're going to go ahead and do that like you see here. So now each one of these have cards underneath them, which could be anything from landmines to nothing, or as the terrorists, you could have your people hidden on this map. So as you see right here, there we go. Right here, I put the sniper. And that winds up becoming an unpleasant surprise for the counter-terrorist player. So on their turn, going from left to right, they're going to activate one of their people. So when you activate your people, you're going to place it, you get 2 movements, and then you can attack. Now your initial placement is considered one of your movements. So she could place it here, and the grid is still a 4x5 grid. So even though there's no cards here, these are just safe places you can go. So she could go 1 and 2 if she wanted to, or she could just land right here. If you ever land on an area that has a card underneath it, you must immediately flip it over and resolve its text. So in this case, the soldier that reveals this location just, boom, takes 5 damage. So the sniper just lost 5 of its hit points because they chose poorly where they were going to start. Then after this player, the counter-terrorist player, has completed all their actions, you can go over to this player, and they may choose, also from left to right, to reveal one of their characters. So in this case, the engineer is up first. Because the engineer is not revealed, this player could decide to reveal the engineer player, allowing you to take a turn, or you could just pass. Nope, I'm good. Goes back over to this player. Now they do the spec ops. They would do the same thing. This is now a safe location. They can then move here, revealing this, and boom, suddenly you have a minefield. And again, goes to this player. They don't want to do anything because they want to remain hidden, but then goes back here. And let's say this player wants to play it safe, moves here, and then in here. they're going to flip this over, and now the engineer pops out. Now there can only ever be 2 soldiers on a location for any reason, and now once this has happened, the terrorist player is going to get to make a free attack. So the engineer is a W. This again, I didn't pre-plan where these were going to go, so let's say I move these over here. His W stat is a 5, so you're going to take 5 dice. You're going to roll just like the last one. We got 3 successes. Added to their base damage, that's 5 damage to the enemy engineers. You would put this over here, or not engineer, sorry, on their squad leader. Sorry about that, I had the tokens mixed up. So you'd put that damage on the squad leader, and then you would continue the game. Now this is going to continue for 6 rounds. Now one of 3 things are going to happen during 6 rounds. Well, one of 2. The strike team is going to find the nuke, because in this case I put it here in the open field. And once they do, they immediately win if they secure this location. Now after 6 rounds, if they do not, then the terrorist player wins. Other than that, there's some respawning rules where the good guys respawn on round 4 and 6, and the bad guys get to respawn on round 5. Other than that, it's going to go back and forth as you guys try to outmaneuver and outthink each other and murder everybody and try to secure a nuclear missile. And as you see here, Eventide of Heroes, or EOH, is meant to emulate games such as League of Legends, Dota, Han, pretty much all of those MOBA-style games. Now what you're going to do, just like you do the other games, you're going to have players, and then you're going to assign heroes to them. So you're going to roll the dice equal to your characters, whatever character has the highest X factor, you're going to roll them, compare number of successes, and then whoever wins gets to decide who's going to go first. So what you're going to do is each player has 5 cards representing each of the different players, or each of the different character cards here. In this case, I have an extra one because of a character ability. But then you also have a decoy. Now the decoy is just that, it's just a decoy. So whoever's going to go first is actually at a slight disadvantage. So that person is going to choose any number of these cards. You can choose none, some, any, or all. And so I could take these, and you're going to put them in one of the 3 lanes. So maybe I go decoy sorcerer. I'll put this in the middle. Now, my opponent does the exact same thing. They would go, okay, maybe they're going to put these here. And you're going to go back and forth putting them in the same lane. So, okay, maybe I put 3 here because I really want to push bottom. And then this player goes, you know what, you can have bottom. Maybe doesn't put anything there. Maybe only puts 1. Who knows? But then maybe they go ahead and put 4 up here and so on and so forth. So you're going to do it this way. Then, at this point, you're going to remove any respawn tokens that you have on any of your characters that may have died. And you're going to flip over the cards here, and you're going to compare how many people have, or how many heroes there are in each lane. Now, the reason why that's important is if you're ever outnumbered 2 to 1, then the nearest tower in that lane is going to be considered destroyed. So in this case, there's 2 to 0. We're overpowering it. This is destroyed. These are tied, or if they had, I don't know, let's say I put 3 here, they put 2. We don't outnumber them 2 to 1, so nothing happens. Whereas this, they outnumber me 4 to 1, actually, so they're going to blow up this tower. Now, it needs to be noted a couple things. For each team that destroys a tower, they're going to get gold. So in this case, my opponent here would get a gold for blowing up this tower, and in this case, I would get a gold for blowing up this tower. And on top of that, before you start blowing up towers, you are able to activate the abilities on your characters. So maybe I'm going to be able to move some of these from here to here, or change the outcome of that battle entirely. But then now the characters actually fight. So in this case, we have the Wanderer, which is the sword in the ground here. So Zeta is going to be able to attack either the Provoker, the Wanderer, or the Bruiser. So in this case, she's going to be able to, her main stat is W. So she's only got a 1 in W because I didn't plan this very well. She'd roll this. She got a 2, no successes. Added to her base damage, I would do 2 damage to him. And you would basically just do this because combat's going to be simultaneous. They're going to be able to do damage. Even if they kill her, she's still going to attack back. And you're going to do that. Now, you're going to keep going back and forth doing that. If Zeta dies, which she probably would, she flips over, and then you put a respawn counter on her. It's effectively going to be 2 rounds until you can get her back. And then at this point, you're going to go ahead and remove all of your lane cards, and then you're going to start the whole violent process over again. Now, where it gets a little different is at the end of the round, you're going to be able to spend gold to buy items, upgrades, stuff like that. Now, your items are actually on the card that you see here. This is an ability, this is an item. You don't get the bottom ability until you've bought it. And when you buy those, buy them, it's going to cost 2, and then it's going to cost 4 to upgrade it, because all of the powers and abilities have an upgrade. Well, some of the abilities do, but they have an upgrade ability as well. You start off with the first level of your ability. Now, where things change a little bit is all of those abilities are once per phase, and there's 2 phases in this game. Now, once a middle or an inner tower is destroyed, because standard MOBA, these 2 are connected to this, these 2 are connected to this. In a standard MOBA, once the middle tower is destroyed, now you start the assault phase. Now, what the assault phase is you add a minion rush to your hand as well, which just allows you to put more cards down to be able to throw out to kind of confuse your opponent. Now, it needs to be noted, minion rushes don't attack heroes, but they do count towards overpowering each other's towers. Now, in order to destroy somebody's main base, you have to destroy both inner towers. The overall goal of the game is, of course, to destroy the inner tower, or the inner city here. Once both towers are destroyed, then you can attack the inner city. And lastly, we have the actual Partition Esports portion of it. Now, this is the only one that cannot be played standalone. This is a way to tie the other 3 games, or any future games, kind of in a campaign setting. So what's going to happen is you're going to start out with a little bit of money to start, and you're going to build your team. So starting out, you don't have a whole lot of money. So you could buy some items. Or you can hire some people. Now, you have to keep in mind, the first game you're going to play is going to be Deckhand, which you only need 1 person. So you dump all your money into getting a really, really good person, but then you don't have any money later. Do you buy a decent person and maybe an item? Or do you buy a couple crappy people, go ahead and fill out your team roster now, so maybe you'll have money later. Because depending on how you place in the other matches, you get more money after each one. Now, the only one that determines the actual victor, though, is the MOBA, EOH. So the rest of them are kind of a means to an end. If you win the other ones, you're going to have an easier chance winning because you can hire the better people, have the better items. Now, you also are going to each draw an event, and it's just going to have some crappy things you're going to have to deal with. So it may throw a wrench into your plans, but you're going to take all of the heroes from all of the sets, which I don't actually have out here. You're going to shuffle them together by price. So you have 50, 75, 100, 150. So if I want Paw, I'm going to have to spend 50,000. He comes to my area, and then a new one comes out for my opponent to be able to buy. Now, if you ever need a person but don't have one, so let's say, I don't know, I have 3 people, but then I can't get a 4th, and we're getting ready to play the shooter. So instead, I can take Gamer Gal or Gamer Guy, which you do not want because they're ones across the board, but you can use them to just fill out your roster just so you can play in the game. Now, if at any time you happen to need 2 of them, then you're disqualified, and it is considered forfeit, and you're considered lost. Now, losing isn't the end of the world. Just because you lost, you're still going to get like a runners-up prize money to try to help you. But if you do win, you're going to have an easier time in the future to pull out more wins, because you're going to have more money to buy the better players. So the better players' stats are infinitely better. We just take these 2 at a glance here. He's 4-4-5-4-4. He's only 3-2-2-2-1. And on top of that, the guy up top, Lord Shadows, he has a special ability for let's see, allies in different lanes, as this gamer in MOBA matches have +2 dice. Awesome. And that's it. You can play them all as a campaign style like this, which will be 3 rounds. After each game, you'll pick all this back up, put the MOBA or whatever you're playing down. You play through it, put this back out, give each other your money for what place you placed in. You're going to buy stuff, pick this back up, put another one out, and you're going to do that through all 3. Or if you don't want to play a campaign setting and you just want to play one of the 3 games, there's nothing stopping you from getting the heroes from just that game and playing just that one. And that is how you play Partition. Now, the game is really cool for a couple reasons. Now, the first reason is the optional campaign mode, if you wind up having all the modules, is really neat, because just because you lost a game of, say, Deckhand, you screwed up your draws, or you just had poor luck, you couldn't get the cards you needed, It's not that big of a deal. You're still going to get a little bit of money, and if you didn't make terrible life decisions like I usually do in the first round, then you may be able to bounce back because you still have, the dice. So there is that kind of element of luck in the entire game, which allows players to be able to bounce back after, terrible draws, or maybe one roll, a really important roll, they weren't able to get it. So that's really cool. But then it's also going to cater to the players who don't like campaign style games. Maybe if you're like me, I love campaign style games, but I have a ton of them, and I never get to play them because it's really hard to play the same game more than once in a campaign session, anyways. And they generally take a long time to do. So this one, if you don't like that, you could easily just, hey, let's play Deckhand. It's pre-built. All of them are going to have expansions, which are going to expand from what I understand, the individual games and add more games. So you'll be able to actually build a deck that's tailored to how you want prior to playing Deckhand, for example, which I thought was a really cool concept. Another thing is, one of the games, one of my favorites here, Millennium Blades. It emulates a CCG, but Millennium Blades never sees the table, just because building that giant stack of cards is such a hassle. Even if you build it and leave it in the deck, the game takes a long time to play. Each one of these modules take, I'd say, once everybody knows what they're doing, 30 minutes, maybe. So you're looking at, to play the tournament, this is including setup, you're probably looking at about a 2-hour game. Once everybody kind of knows what they're doing, about a 2-hour game, which isn't bad at all, especially to play through effectively an entire campaign. So if you're looking for a light little 2-player game with a surprising amount of strategy that can also be played kind of in a campaign format, so you're making those tough decisions and those tough calls and your decisions carry with you and matter, definitely I'd recommend picking up Partition. The concept is great, the games are really light, fairly easy to learn, but also hold a surprising amount of depth and strategy for how small these games are. Anyways, as always, I hope you enjoyed this video. If this sounds interesting, definitely check out their Kickstarter up here and down in the description as well. Once it's available, I'll post a link there. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time in the Kwarenteen.